It is almost Thanksgiving, and I am grateful and thankful for Ethereum not completely crashing. Today, we're going to talk about the state of the market, the pricing of ETH, and our favorite shiny JPEGs. Welcome to Goats in the Metaverse, my friends, where I am joined by my colleague and good friend, Jossie. Welcome to the show. Before we get started, I want to know, what are you thankful and grateful for, my friend?
I think you said it beautifully. I'm grateful and thankful to be in this crazy Web3 world. There's no place I'd rather be, even when our bags are down and our JPEGs are looking a little less pretty. But, for all the things that it's done, I only really feel blessed with everything that's happened in my life because of Web3 and because of crypto. So I really am grateful for the big, broad community that is being built right here in front of us, despite all the craziness.
And there's absolutely craziness going on. It has been pretty quiet, but we wanted to do a show that kind of covers what is the state of ETH, what is the state of crypto, where do kind of JPEGs stand and rank, and overall tone of the market. Are people still believers? Are people quitters? Where do you stand? We want to hear from you, the audience. So make sure you drop a comment below and tell us your feelings. We still love you. Heart, heart, heart. So let's get into it. Let's see where those crypto prices are. $1,160, which is, it says up, but I think last time we recorded a show, ETH was sitting somewhere around the 1,200 and change mark. Sold $12.92 last time we recorded. It was about 14 and change, if I'm not mistaken, Yossi.
Yeah.
And ApeCoin, $3.29. And I feel like there's opportunities to trade there, right? I feel like that there's hashtag not financial advice, do your own research, but I feel like we have seen some fluctuations there as well. Down in the twos, up in the mid threes. Give me your kind of knee-jerk reaction of those price points. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? What do you like? What do you not like?
Well, I think that there's a couple of interesting things out of it. I think if we hadn't moved to a proof of stake network and this type of deflationary money management system with ETH, we would have seen ETH at a much lower price. The fact that it hasn't broken $1,000 on the down, I think it's been pretty remarkable. It's showing the resilience of this new proof of stake system, the way that tokens get added and removed from the supply, and the overall resilience of the ETH ecosystem. In all the craziness, we're talking here about, is DCG going insolvent? What has happened with FTX? What's happening with Genesis? We've had Celsius. We've had all these major centralized exchanges and platforms and lending providers all suddenly overnight almost disappear. But we're seeing Ethereum still having blocks filled, people still building applications, and the price holding strong. And that is the power of decentralization. People are talking about it, not in theory anymore, but really in how this should really be playing out. So I think ETH holding strong at this price point is bullish for ETH. We're still in a very tough macro condition and macro environment. So I wouldn't be saying load all your bags here, but definitely think there's an opportunity here. Solana has been pounded in this FTX fallout. We saw a high of $280 in the Sol world, sitting at $12.92. I'd be watching the Solana developer ecosystem and seeing if it's continuing. Do we have more wallets being created on Solana? Are there more developers building on Solana? And if those are the leading indicators, and if they're starting to move up, there's a big play there in Sol. And ApeCoin, I'm less bullish on. I don't know what is happening in the ApeCoin ecosystem. And maybe that's just lack of information. But I haven't seen much. And they've got a big securities exchange, spotlight on them. And we've seen what happens when the SEC comes for you. Things slow down and grind to a halt. What can you message? What can you talk about? Every single thing you're thinking about now is under legal consideration. And that's not a place for innovation. So I'm less bullish on Ape.
All right. And I tend to agree with a lot of your comments. Even though I'm pretty bullish on ape, I think and once again, these are a lot of assumptions and educated guesses. I'm going to assume that the other side, the game that they're building is they're probably the closest ones to breaking out and doing something that is going to be truly magnificent, that is going to be truly, a real game, right? Like the Grand Theft Auto, the Call of Duties, right? Like something along those lines. They probably have something closer to those models than anybody else. Once again, that's a lot of assumptions and educated guesses, and I'm just kind of in Yuga we trust here. But we shall wait and see. The other thing I want to mention, and I think this is kind of both. I agree with your point, right? FTX, whatever happened with them, and you would expect ETH to be way below $1,000, and the fact that it's not is actually very, very exciting. But in a personal experience, I was I needed to pay somebody in crypto, and they needed to take that money and exchange it into their currency. And the problem was I don't trust any platforms anymore, right?
Yeah, it's not safe out there.
It's not safe out there, and I said, you know, I don't know if I want to do that, right? So now you're kind of coming into, to kind of a point where you're saying, when we used to say, listen, there's countries out there, the dollar, their economy is corrupt, their currency is corrupt, it's not worth anything, but now you could pay them in crypto, right? Now, I mean, you can still make that payment through MetaMask, right, and other wallets, but they might not be able to go exchange it, right? Or they might have to go put it on a platform, and they might say, I don't want to go put that money onto those specific platforms. So it kind of changes the narrative a little bit. I know I'm going a little bit off script here, but like, what do we do, right? Like until we maybe the SEC or somebody does come in here and say, we're going to govern this, right, and we're going to fix this, it does kind of put us in a holding pattern as far as saying, like, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe, and I think people are going to continue to build on the blockchain. The blockchain can be involved, but do we need the SEC involved? Do we need somebody to come in and govern this? Is there, until we do get some governance, is that something that maybe we're never going to see that big jump or that kind of big second wave of buyers? What are your thoughts there?
Well, really, I think this is about fiat on-ramps and off-ramps, is what you're talking about. How do you get money in and out of the system using fiat today? In the kind of bullish, decentralized view is that fiat disappears in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and Bitcoin or ETH is the currency, or many of these stable coins, but that's going to take a long time. So how do we get fiat on-ramps and off-ramps that are more secure and that don't have this type of risk? And the way I think about it is like my credit card. I use my credit card to make purchases on a daily basis, but I don't store my money on my credit card. There is an interplay between my credit card transaction and then debiting my credit card to make that payment. And that is where we're going to need to go in the world of crypto, where making payments and transactions can happen using your mobile phone or something like a credit card. And then the kind of debiting of that gets pulled from a decentralized wallet that's not sitting on an exchange where all your Bitcoin doesn't have to be, or all your crypto doesn't have to be. And there's technology that's being built to make that happen. It's going to take time, but that's ultimately where we want to be, where this interplay can happen automatically, but you're not having to store all your crypto on some kind of centralized exchange. You have the ability to manage that and store that. That's not appealing for everyone. Not everyone wants to store $1 million or $100,000 or $10,000 in a little ledger device that they're hiding under their bed. So it's not a foolproof solution, but it is the way that we're seeing the market play out. But what does this mean for our shiny JPEGs? Does this mean that the market is going down? Is it going to be able to recover? What are your thoughts there?
A lot of thoughts. I mean, is the market going to recover? Is a big question. I think the market is going to continue to evolve, and it's probably going to evolve into a bunch of different directions, right? Looking at these prices right now, is a cool cat cheap at 2 Ethereum? and I'm just pulling a cool cat as an example, the answer might be yes, right? Because if you're buying a cool cat today, you're paying what, $2,300, $2,400, whatever, 2,200, whatever the numbers work out to be. If you bought a cool cat at 15 ETH when ETH was $3,000, we're giving, we're talking completely different hemispheres here. But here's why I say it could potentially be cheap. If you look at the landscape, they have a real CEO in place who has real world connections. Bob Iger just took over Disney. Is that something that could come into play? And Iger says, let's get into the NFT space and go buy out a current project. And now all of a sudden they go purchase out a company like a Cool Cat. I think the possibilities are real. I saw they announced they're going to be part of the Thanksgiving Day parade next year. I think that's a pretty big deal because now they're getting assimilated to real world culture. So if you're looking at some of these things from kind of more of a macro perspective, it might make sense. CryptoPunk sitting at 62 Ethereum. When the whole hoopla started in February of 21, CryptoPunks were at 40 grand, right? They're obviously, you're still up if you bought it for 40 grand right now. You're still up, but it's not that far off from the bottom of kind of when this whole bull rush happened, or at least the first one. World of Woman, 1.58 Ethereum. I mean, I don't think they have done that much, but they're still the woman-led project. They still do have respect. They still have credibility. I'm going to assume that there's probably going to need to be some sort of CEO change, or somebody's going to have to come in, inject some capital into them and do something. But I don't know. Those prices do seem affordable to me if you're looking at it from the perspective of, can these projects survive in the next 5 to 10 years, and where can they go? And I would look at it from the same way as a VC, right? 10% success rate, maybe 20% success rate if I'm lucky. Can I go buy those blue chips and hit on 10% of them? And is my investment going to go 10x? That's how I would probably look at it, and not how we used to look at projects where we buy something for 1 Ethereum, sell something for 10 Ethereum. I don't think those things are going to exist anymore. What about you, sir?
Well, what's interesting and where I think it is if we look at the data of what's going on in the markets, we have Solana sitting on about 7.4 million wallet addresses that have ever owned an NFT. And that number is accelerating and climbing. It's linear, but it's starting to accelerate in that type of graph. And then on Ethereum, we have roughly 6.5 million, 6.24 million wallets that have ever owned an NFT. In the grand scheme of the world, that is small. That is tiny. 13 million between the two biggest chains. I don't know what the number for Polygon is. It's probably quite a big number. But then we also look at, well, we've got Nike.swoosh launching. We have Instagram allowing you to now mint NFTs on the Polygon network. And some of those NFTs recently have sold out in seconds. We have Starbucks coming with their collectibles program. We have these big brands that are going to start socializing this idea of digital collectibles, and that this idea of a digital collectible is real, and there is real utility and value in that. So I think that market is only going to grow and accelerate. Will the brands that we just put up, will the cool cats in the world of women's be the iconic communities to be part of? That's a big question. That's a bet. That is a, like you say, a VC style type of bet. But what hasn't had the same kind of downward trend in the world of NFTs to date is generative art. And I think that is extremely interesting. We had there on the screen Tyler Hobbs Fidenza staying flat at 95 ETH. Through all this turmoil, people are still spending 95 ETH for their Fidenza and holding that price strong. And we're seeing that play out in the blue chips in the generative art world, whether it's a Squiggle or a Fidenza or a Cherniak. Those items are becoming cultural icons, and generative art as a category seems to be holding strong as a category. So there's two different plays. There's this historical, iconic art collector world, that's the generative art, and then there's these community-driven plays like the Moonbirds of this world, the world of women's, and where they can play out. And they're two very different risk profiles. You have the people who are all in on the JPEGs and the PFP side, and then you have the art collectors. Art collectors seem to have stronger hands. They're more diamond-handed in the downward market. Let's see what happens when the market turns around and whether you see such strong price appreciation. Maybe it's in the PFPs where you're going to see this kind of extreme volatility in pricing. But I think there's two different markets almost playing out within a small market, 13 million wallet holders, and you actually have two very different markets in this market today.
Well, it kind of makes sense if you think about it, right? If you're an art collector, you're not an art trader. You buy your art, you put it up on your wall, and you hold it. You appreciate it every single day. You're not like, oh, let me take it off and go sell it to the next guy. And obviously, I'm sure there's people that do trade art, right? But,
sure.
But for the most part, you're buying it to appreciate it. So I think the mentality is a little bit different. I think you have the people, the traders came out of the PFP collectors, right? And they said, well, now I'm down on the community, I'm going to go trade. Then they go speculate, then they go make a few bucks. And obviously that market has completely changed. And I think we're going to have a lot of different kind of almost separate markets come out of it, right? There's the gaming market, which now has gone a little bit cold, but there's still people that are saying gaming is the future of NFTs. We talked about generative art. There's the regular art market. There's the PFP community market. And now what we're seeing, which the projects that are selling out are the ones that are backed by VCs, right? The ones that are doing something that is innovative, that is something they're going to raise money ahead of time. They're getting big bucks behind them. And then they're going out and selling out their collections, which, if you think about it from a different perspective, is probably not the worst way to go about it, right? Because the communities can't say to you, well, what happens if you run out of money? Well, we're not going to run out of money. We just raised, $5, $10, $15 million, whatever it is. Here's our plan. And people say, well, if they pass the VC test, they're probably a solid team. They're probably docs. They probably have some sort of experience. They probably have a real business plan and a real marketing plan. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. Is the next blue chip project going to come out of that VC realm, right? Is it going to come out of that art realm? Or is it going to come out of somebody just starting a community and that community catching absolute fire and going bonkers? Only time will tell. I'm sure you and I will be here to see what happens. But
we do have two projects, and we'll talk about it on our next show. That is the dichotomy between those two. We have Valhalla that came out yesterday, VC backed, $15 million, backed by, I think it's Paradigm, as one of the major backers. Big LA kind of studio franchise coming out and trying to be the gaming equivalent of Azuki for Web3. And then we have a project that looks like it was done by two developers called Prometheans, low-key, soft mint. It's a free to own mint, and there's an interesting mechanism where every 15 minutes a countdown goes for 15 minutes. If nothing gets minted in those 15 minutes, the mint is over. If someone mints in those 15 minutes, the 15 minutes reset, and they're already on 31,000 mints being created. So we're creating community that way. Two very different approaches to this type of thing. And we're going to cover both of those in our next show and see how does that play out. Where would you be putting your money? Where will stronger community be built? And where is there opportunity for you to see how you can play this in the NFT market with this kind of bear market vibes, but there are still great opportunities out there. And like we always say, still extremely early. So I am staying close and paying attention, because now is when I think things get the most interesting of all.
I agree. And we want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and to say we're thankful for you, our community. Hope everybody enjoys it. And for all the listeners around the world that are not based in the US, we hope you enjoy your workday. I'm joking. But yes, and as a present to you, we still have our Goat Vault What is the Goat Vault, Yasi? For those of you wondering at home.
The Goat Vault is our way of rewarding our fans. Smash the subscribe button, and once we hit 5,000 subscribers, we're going to open up all the contents of the vault. We have locked away some very shiny NFTs into that vault. We spoke about a cool cat. We spoke about a World of Woman. They're both in the vault, and once we unlock it, one of you could be a lucky winner of the contents there. Valued at $10,000. All you need to do is subscribe to the show, tell your friends, and you could be winning.
Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see y'all next week. Have a great one, everybody.